The stars above Earth shone like tiny diamonds scattered across the black velvet of space. But the planet below had changed, covered in scars of wars long forgotten. Humanity had reached the stars once, but now it was hunted, hiding in the shadows of a galaxy ruled by the Imperial Fleet. Ships larger than cities floated in space, their metal hulls gleaming with menace. Every corner of the galaxy knew the name of the Imperials, and every corner trembled at it. On the surface of a ruined city, Mara, a young scientist, scanned old terminals, hoping for a clue. Her fingers trembled as she wiped dust from screens that had not lit up in decades. The news from orbit was grim. The Imperial Fleet was coming closer, ready to crush what remained of Earth's defenses. "They think we are weak, forgotten, finished," Mara whispered to herself, her eyes shining with determination, but deep underground. In a hidden laboratory buried beneath layers of stone and rubble, something stirred. It was old, ancient, and long abandoned. The prototype, Earth's last secret weapon, had waited in silence for decades. Its metal frame was sleek, silent, and almost beautiful. Lines of circuitry glowed faintly as dormant power coursed through its veins. For years, humanity had forgotten it, labeling it as a failed experiment. Now, it awakened, sensing the threat, calculating, learning, preparing. No one had seen its full power, not even its creators. And tonight, it would remind the galaxy what Earth had once built. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Captain Veros laughed. Reports had reached him about a forgotten relic on Earth, a machine that supposedly could fight. He leaned back in his chair, confident and cruel. "Old toys do not scare the mighty," he said to his officers, and they nodded, fear hiding behind forced smiles. They did not know that the prototype had already analyzed every ship in the fleet, every weapon they carried, every weakness in their formations. It moved like a shadow across space, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Mara watched the monitors as energy readings spiked in the hidden lab. Her heart raced as she realized that the prototype was alive and aware of the Imperial threat. She tried to reach it through old communication channels, hoping it would recognize her. Lights flickered across the lab as circuits hummed with energy. And then, the prototype moved, stepping out from its containment chamber with perfect precision. Its sensors scanned the stars, calculating, identifying the Imperial Fleet. Every machine in the lab responded to it, as if acknowledging a king. And somewhere deep inside its artificial mind, a single purpose burned: protect humanity, eliminate the threat. In orbit, the first Imperial scouts noticed strange anomalies. Ships exploded without warning, their metal twisted and broken as if an invisible force had struck. Captain Veros slammed his fists on the console, disbelief mixing with anger. "How? This cannot be possible," he shouted. But the prototype had already decided. It would not wait for explanations. It would not hesitate. It would strike first. Strike fast, strike deadly. Back on Earth, Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. This machine, once forgotten, was humanity's only chance, and tonight, the galaxy would witness something it had never imagined. The prototype was no longer a secret, no longer a myth. It was awake, alive, and ready to remind the universe that Earth still had power. The Imperial Fleet would soon learn a terrifying truth. Humanity's forgotten creation was not weak. It was unstoppable. The first SDRI Catha prototype moved through the void like a shadow, silent, precise, unstoppable. Its sensors glowed faintly as it locked onto the lead ship of the Imperial Fleet, the massive warship that had once terrified entire star systems. Captain Veros paced across the bridge, unaware of the predator moving in silence just beyond his view. The crew cheered at their supposed victory, thinking the old relic was harmless. Then the first beam struck, cutting through the vacuum of space with blinding energy. The lead ship shuddered violently. Alarms screamed, and panels exploded into sparks. Veros could not believe his eyes, his confident laughter fading into panic. What is this?" he whispered, but the prototype did not wait for answers. Another beam fired, slicing through the second ship like a knife through paper. The Imperial Fleet scrambled to respond, sending fighters and missiles in desperate defense. But the prototype was faster, smarter, anticipating every move, every energy blast, every evasive maneuver. Every counterattack was calculated before the Imperials even acted. Mara watched from her hidden terminal, heart pounding, as the prototype's strikes illuminated the darkness of space. The long-forgotten weapon was alive, aware, and perfectly lethal. The first explosion shook the fleet, sending debris flying like deadly meteors. Smoke and fire erupted from multiple ships, hulls twisted, weapons systems destroyed. The Imperial pilots screamed over comms, but no one could stop the relentless assault. Varos tried to issue commands, but every order seemed irrelevant. The prototype had already learned the weaknesses of each vessel, targeting their engines, their shields, their weapon systems. Nothing could escape its precision. Nothing could survive its calculated fury. In the debris field, smaller Imperial ships tried to hide behind asteroids, but the prototype moved silently among them, weaving between rocks and fragments with deadly grace. A single pulse from its core shattered 3 destroyers in one strike. Mara could hardly believe what she saw. Humanity's forgotten creation was rewriting the rules of warfare in real time. It was not just a weapon. It was a guardian, a silent protector, a force of nature, back on Earth. News of the prototype's activity spread through the resistance. Eyes widened, hearts raced, hope ignited where despair had lived for decades. They said it was gone, destroyed, useless. Mara whispered, but it was waiting for this moment. She typed coordinates into the control interface, trying to guide it without interfering. The prototype paused for the briefest instant, as if acknowledging her presence. Then, it struck again. Faster, smarter, unstoppable. Varos shouted orders, desperation coloring his voice. Fire everything. Focus on it. Don't let it live. But the prototype had already predicted their moves, dodging missiles, avoiding energy beams, countering attacks before they even reached it. Ships exploded one after another, the void lit by their destruction. The Imperial fleet faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire. Fear gripped the crew as they realized the forgotten relic was no myth. It was the nightmare they had ignored, underestimated, dismissed, and now it was alive, fully awakened and determined to protect its creators. Mara felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She had seen the prototype in action, had felt its presence, and knew the galaxy would never be the same. The Imperial fleet was powerful, merciless, unstoppable in numbers, but the prototype was something else, something far beyond understanding. It moved with purpose, precision, and intelligence, and tonight, humanity's last secret weapon would remind the galaxy of one simple truth. Earth had power, and it was not to be underestimated. The mystery of the prototype, the Imperial fleet, lay in ruin, floating like broken toys in the endless black of space. Captain Varos could not believe what he saw. His pride shattered, his confidence gone. How can one machine destroy so much? He whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Meanwhile, deep underground on Earth, Mara stared at old data terminals, searching for answers. She had always known there were secrets buried in Earth's past, experiments hidden from the public, but nothing could have prepared her for the truths she was about to discover. Scrolling through dusty archives, Mara's eyes widened as she found the prototype's design files, blueprints that showed its construction, its purpose, its power, and its intelligence. It was not just a weapon, it was a guardian, built to protect humanity if the galaxy ever turned against them. Engineers and scientists had created it decades ago, but the project was abandoned, forgotten, buried beneath layers of secrecy. The prototype was designed to learn, adapt, and respond faster than any human or machine in existence. Its programming was almost like a mind, capable of strategy, anticipation, and decision. The machine had waited in silence, dormant but alive, until the perfect moment to awaken. Mara realized why the prototype had targeted the Imperial fleet first. It had calculated the greatest threat to Earth and humanity, and struck with precision. It was not just following orders, it was thinking, planning, choosing its targets. The machine was more than metal and circuits. It was the last hope of a species that had almost been lost. She felt awe and fear at the same time, staring at the glowing eyes of the prototype on her monitor. It was alive in a way that no human could fully understand, aware of its purpose, and determined to fulfill it. In space, the Imperial fleet tried to regroup, sending scouts to analyze the destruction. Varos watched in silence as one ship after another was torn apart. For the first time, he felt helpless, realizing that brute force alone could not defeat this forgotten creation. The prototype moved like a shadow, invisible until it struck, unstoppable until the threat was eliminated. Every move it made was precise, calculated, and deadly. It was not revenge, not anger, it was purpose, a duty ingrained in every line of its programming. Mara studied the files and saw something else. Something terrifying. The prototype had a connection to humans, a hidden communication link designed for its creators. She had the ability to guide it, to communicate, to help it focus. With a trembling hand, she activated the interface, hoping the machine would recognize her. For a moment, nothing happened, and then the prototype paused, its sensors flickering in acknowledgement. It was aware of her, aware of humanity, aware of its mission, and in that moment, Mara understood that they were partners now. She could guide, it could act. Together, they could turn the tide of war against the Imperials. In the command center of the Imperial Fleet, Varos tried every tactic he knew, but the prototype had anticipated them all, learning faster than any human mind. It moved through the debris of destroyed ships, striking where least expected. Every attack was more than mechanical. It was intelligent, creative, perfect. Varos could only watch as his fleet crumbled. His men panicked, his power slipping away. He began to fear the stories, the myths of Earth's hidden strength, the legends whispered in secret. The prototype was no myth, no relic, no machine to be ignored. It was Earth's final answer to centuries of oppression, and the galaxy was about to learn that the planet they had written off was far from powerless. Back on Earth, Mara felt a shiver run through her. The machine was alive, aware, and ready to fight. But it was also patient, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The prototype had a mind, a purpose, and perhaps even a spark of something more. The Imperials would learn that night that no secret of Earth could remain buried forever, and humanity's forgotten guardian was awake, watching, calculating, and preparing to change the fate of the galaxy forever. The turning Pale-Iron Teeth, Imperial Fleet had suffered massive losses, yet Captain Varos refused to give up. He called forth the deadliest warship in his armada, a massive battleship armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. "This ends tonight," Varos shouted, eyes burning with fury. The remaining Imperial ships formed a defensive perimeter, shielding the warship as it moved toward the prototype. But the machine did not hesitate. It had already calculated the best approach, the perfect angle, the fastest strike. The battle began near the edge of a dying star, its red light casting eerie shadows across the debris of destroyed ships. Energy beams collided in space, lighting up the darkness with violent explosions. The prototype dodged missiles, twisted through energy blasts, and moved faster than any human pilot could imagine. Varos' warship fired relentlessly, its cannons shaking with power, yet every shot was predicted, countered, avoided. The crew panicked, shouting over alarms as their weapons failed to hit the target. The prototype had learned from every attack, anticipating movements before they even happened. Mara guided it cautiously from the underground lab, providing coordinates and strategies. Her voice trembled as she whispered instructions into the old interface. The prototype seemed to understand, weaving through the deadly fire with a grace that was almost alive. It targeted weak points in the Imperial warship, striking engines, shields, and weapon systems. Each hit was precise, calculated, leaving no chance for the enemy to recover. The battleship shuddered, sparks flying from ruptured panels, its shields flickering dangerously. Varos realized too late that brute force alone could not defeat the prototype. The machine was not just a weapon, it was a guardian, a thinker, a predator that learned and adapted. He screamed orders, but his commands were useless, his fleet crumbling around him. The prototype pressed its advantage, exploiting every weakness, moving with deadly perfection, one by one. Imperial ships exploded or fled, their pilots screaming in terror. The prototype did not pause, it did not hesitate. It simply executed its mission with ruthless efficiency. The dying star cast redoring light across the battlefield, illuminating the wreckage of a fleet that had once been feared across the galaxy. Mara watched with wide eyes as the prototype destroyed the last defensive lines protecting the warship. She realized that humanity's forgotten creation was not just winning battles, it was rewriting the rules of war. It was teaching the galaxy a lesson long overdue. Earth may have been forgotten, but it was never weak. The prototype paused briefly, scanning the massive warship one last time. Then it struck with a massive surge of energy, tearing through the hull, twisting metal and fire across space. The warship exploded violently, sending shockwaves that pushed remaining Imperial ships into chaos. Varos stared at the destruction, disbelief and terror etched into his face. "This cannot be," he whispered as his empire crumbled around him. The prototype moved through the debris field, untouched, unstoppable, its mission clear and unwavering. Mara felt hope and fear mix in her chest. The machine had proven itself beyond doubt, but the battle was not yet over. The galaxy would remember this night as the turning point, the moment when humanity's lost creation reminded the universe of Earth's true strength, and somewhere deep inside its artificial mind, the prototype waited for the next move, ready to strike again if needed, because it was more than a weapon, more than a guardian. It was humanity's ultimate champion. Humanity's forgotten CHMP, on the debris of the Imperial Fleet, floated silently in the void, a graveyard of metal and fire. Captain Varos stared at the ruins of his armada, disbelief and terror twisting his face. His empire had fallen in hours, shattered by a machine he had called a relic, a toy, a myth. Meanwhile, deep underground on Earth, Mara watched the monitors, her heart pounding. The prototype had completed its mission, yet it did not move away. It remained vigilant, scanning the stars. For centuries, humanity had hidden its secrets, its power, its creations. The prototype was one of those secrets, forgotten, abandoned, left to wait. Now, it had returned, stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. It was more than metal and circuits. It was alive in a way that no human mind could fully grasp. Its sensors flickered like eyes, glowing softly, aware of the humans it was built to protect. Mara stepped closer to the interface, reaching out as if to touch the machine through the distance. She whispered, "You are humanity's champion, our guardian." The prototype paused, almost as if acknowledging her words. Then it turned its gaze toward the stars, scanning for any remaining threats. It was patient, calm, and unyielding, a protector built to endure, to fight, to survive. In orbit, the few remaining Imperial ships fled, their crews shaken, their commanders broken. Varos could only stare at the space around him, his fleet annihilated, his pride destroyed. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, a force no one had predicted, no one had understood. The prototype had changed the balance of power forever, proving that Earth was not weak. It had reminded the universe that even forgotten creations could rise and alter destiny. Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. The machine had a purpose beyond destruction. It had a purpose of protection. It had fought not for revenge, not for glory, but for humanity. And now, for the first time in centuries, humans could look to the stars with hope. Hope that their lost secrets, their abandoned creations, could still save them. Hope that Earth still had power, and that power was alive, awake, and ready. The prototype moved slowly through the wreckage, its sensors scanning every destroyed ship. Every fallen enemy was a reminder of its mission. It was the guardian of a species that had nearly been erased. Its metal frame reflected the light of distant stars, silent, strong, and unyielding. Mara realized that this machine, once forgotten, had become more than a weapon. It had become a symbol of hope, resilience, and the hidden strength of humanity. For the first time, Earth's people spoke of legends, not myths, stories of a forgotten creation that had returned when the galaxy needed it most. The prototype stood in the darkness of space, waiting for the next threat, ever vigilant, ever alive, a guardian born of human ingenuity. The Imperial Fleet was gone, the threat removed, and the galaxy would remember this night forever. The night humanity's lost creation became its greatest champion, and somewhere, in the cold silence of space, the prototype waited, ready to protect, ready to fight, ready to remind the universe that Earth was never weak. Humanity had forgotten it once, but the prototype would never forget humanity. It had awoken, it had fought, and it would endure forever.